Welcome to the Rampant Discourse YouTube channel. I'm your host, Paul Essen.
I'm Andrew Riley.
I'm Travis Hudson.
And Travis, big shock, what are we doing tonight?
We're down into the final week of our beer advent calendar, if I did my math right on that. So, we're on beer 18. They save the upper left corner. Yeah, upper left.
Don't knock those cans down.
Oh, they're precarious, all right. Oh, God.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I just say, oh, man. All right, well, that was quite a... Apparently, Erl puts up quite a fight. Is this a
Hell.
Andrew, or is this a name?
It's a name. This is the Erl Hell, which is brewed by the Landgang Brauerei, which is a family owned brewery. They've been brewing since 1871. They have a bit of a genealogy going back on their website a little bit further than that. The Erl family still owns and operates the brewery. It is now a Josef Erl, not a Ludwig, but it's had Ludwig or Josef Erl in charge of it for that entire 150 years, basically. So they're celebrating their 150th anniversary as a brewery. They're out of Gieselhofen in Bavaria. They're southeast of Nuremberg and northeast of Munich, which is towards the Czech-Austria border. And this is a traditional style German Helles lager. So I'm hoping we're going to see some good here. I saw some reviews, because you can't miss some of these things when you're doing a little bit of research. But I'm hoping that this beats out the reviews. Let's put it that way.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert for the internet.
So the internet is a terrible place.
I have to ask, the brewers of this fine hells, were any of them ever a duke?
No.
So you wouldn't say it was brewed by the Duke of Erl.
Correct. I would not be saying that.
That's unfortunate.
You went a long way for that joke, Paul.
Hey, I can be granted some leash because, Andrew, do you have any corrections from our last episode that you would like to give?
I do. Paul was in fact correct, which is like the one time you're going to hear me say this. It was Loving versus Virginia, not Love versus Virginia.
And for those who are curious, it was important because, not just because it legalized interracial marriage in Virginia, because it was a Supreme Court case which ruled that laws banning interracial marriage across the United States were unconstitutional. So it kind of legalized interracial marriage across the nation. So a big important case. And
that's why I brought it up. And when we were talking about miscegenation, I was like, well, of course we're talking about Loving v. Virginia. And as Paul and I are residents of Virginia, we've been also promoting that it's not like Virginia's been on the right side of history for a lot of these things.
No, Virginia has oftentimes been on the wrong side of a lot of history.
That's okay, we're the birthplace of presidents.
Yes, like Jefferson Davis.
Ooh.
Although he wasn't born in Virginia, was he?
I don't know.
No.
Okay, fact check for this episode. Jefferson Davis born.
Although,
That's
slight tangent there. It seems a bad idea on the Confederacy to put your capital so close to the other nation's capital. Why not put it in like Georgia or something?
I've read a fair amount of like Civil War history and alternative history stuff, and someone made that exact point. They're like, the fact that they moved, because initially before Virginia seceded, I think they had the capital in, I want to say Atlanta, but maybe I'm wrong. The capital was somewhere else initially, and they ended up moving it to Richmond. And someone made the point, like, that could have been one of the major problems with the Confederacy. Like, so much time and effort was spent fighting over that small stretch of land between Washington and Richmond that they could have like easily have given some territory there and fought over more, maybe not more important, because Richmond was still an important city, but you know, obviously when you make it your capital, it becomes even more important that you can't lose your capital, really.
Yeah. Seems like you want the buffer of the Carolinas in there to
yeah, it might have given them a little bit more wiggle room in terms of like drawing out the war and eventually making the Union kind of have to capitulate. But who knows? It's one of those things that's always kind of fun to
woulda, coulda,
speculate
shoulda.
about.
The counterfactuals of the American Civil War are just like an entire library full of really interesting theory. I don't think that made much difference because I think they were going to fight to the death to save Virginia anyway, because Virginia was such an economic powerhouse at that time that they needed to have the resources.
Yeah, you couldn't really just like give up on Virginia like you would like a Maryland, which was also a slaveholding state, if I recall.
But they never stayed in the Union, and so that's why that line was drawn there, which is why the Mason-Dixon line is above Maryland, not below, even though people think that the South and Mason-Dixon line Maryland is a southern state in that sense.
It also makes it easier because it's a straight line across Maryland. Imagine if the
Those-
Mason-Dixon line was like had to do that crazy line along Virginia's
Potomac.
northern border.
Yeah.
So this isn't a correction, but just to confirm what Paul said about the naming of peanuts was, yeah, he said, quote, I don't like the name of my strip at all. I wanted to call it Good Old Charlie Brown, but the person at the syndicate who selected peanuts just picked it at random from a list of possible titles he jotted down. He hadn't even looked at the strip when he named it. So, yeah, apparently it comes from our good old peanut gallery because they thought it would appeal to the because that was the term on the Howdy Doody show in 1947, and so it was so popular when that comic strip started. So apparently that's part of the rationale. He thinks it's just at random. The rationale is apparently it was going to appeal to the Howdy Doody show audience.
Just one more story about how like the creatives types do not like the marketers and how they decided to market their
It's been going on for decades.
Hey, that's
Yeah.
why there's still no official Calvin and Hobbes merchandise.
Is he still alive, Bill Waters?
I'm assuming he is. He's
I
so
heard about
reclusive
that.
that who would know? But I assume we'll know when he dies.
Someone will know. We'll get an announcement, and that'll be very sad. I was looking for Charles Schultz scandals just because, I was like, has he been canceled? I couldn't find anything that was really scandalous. That doesn't mean he hasn't got skeletons in his closet that will come out eventually. I don't want to say I was.
Andrew will find it.
I spent like one day researching this, and it was all my off time, right? So I didn't
A
spend a lot
whole
of time.
day? Jeez.
Since yesterday, right?
I mean, I can't remember if because the little red-haired girl was actually like a real lady but I can't remember. Terrible. I proclaim to be a Peanuts fan. I feel like I should already know all this. I can't remember though if that's who he actually married, or was that his second wife, or is that just somebody he pined for his entire life? That's not a scandal,
Or was that his mistress?
right? Well, okay, that would become the scandal, right?
It's a scandal in the 1960s. It's not so much a scandal these days. I will say I did find a little bit of a scandal.
I almost think it's not just as much as not like. I know what you mean, but it feels like I don't know. I didn't actually watch Mad Men, but I feel like Mad Men was like all about like every guy has a mistress or something.
Just
Yeah, but
because
you
it's
don't marry
common
them.
doesn't mean it's not scandalous. I think that it is less scandalous now. I think people are more accepting of that kind of behavior than they were in the past. But I think that actually be less common now. I'm not 100% sure about that. So it's one of those weird things where it becomes less common and more accepted at the same time.
I guess it's also we're really going off the rails earlier tonight, aren't we?
That's the deal for you.
It becomes more accepted because I guess it gets called out more, if that makes any sense at all. Like it might have happened just as much, but like women were just like, like the wife was just she grinned and bared it kind of attitude. I think from I don't know. I wasn't alive in the 1950s. I can't speak what housewives felt like in the 1950s, but just from like movies and TV shows, that seems to be kind of the societal norm, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Well, the situation is that there's not a lot of recourse. In order to get a divorce, you have to show that there's been mistreatment, usually physical abuse. A mistress on the side would potentially be enough, but then even if you get that divorce, you're now on your own, you've got kids. The same kind of problems that affects a woman trying to get a divorce these days, only even more so because the odds of her being able to be employed or have been employed and care for those children without having already found the next husband, which is probably not something that's going to happen. It was much, much harder back then. So it was something that I think was put up with more out of necessity.
All right.
But Charles,
I think I
I
get
thought you had a tangential scandal. So the closest thing I found to a scandal was the fact that his character Franklin, the black character in the strip, is he's treated very well, but in content that was not entirely Schultz's responsibility, such as the Thanksgiving special. Franklin is put at the Thanksgiving table. He's included, but he's on his entire own side of the table. Everyone else is on the other side of the table. So it's like this really, really minor thing, but it's like included but separate. Separate but equal.
I'm trying to remember. I mean, he also was only there because like Pepper and Patty just invites herself and Marcy, and she's like, oh yeah, Franklin, you can come along too.
I mean, that's the story beat, of course, but you know, as an additional character in the strip, he's not a huge player. But the inclusion of an African American character in a comic strip of that type that early was kind of groundbreaking as well. So
And
in the context, pretty good.
And obviously, it's something people have, I think, put on since the strip. I don't know if it was actually, I highly doubt it was actually Schultz's intent. But I mean, I just said Peppermint Patty and Marcy. I mean, that's been something, a relationship that's been layered on top of in more recent years too.
Yes, they're very good friends. They passed the Bechtel test.
The
If you
what
know what I'm
test?
saying.
But the thing is, most of the time they're talking about Charlotte, so I'm not sure if they actually do.
Mm,
They do
that's
actually both.
okay though, right?
But two women talking to each other about something other than a man.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. Travis, you look confused. You not know the Bechtel test?
No, apparently not.
Okay, well, so Andrew just basically said like 90% of it. The idea is that so a Bechtel test, I think it goes for any media, but largely it's used for television and movies, I think. And such a media will pass the Bechtel test if it contains two females who have a conversation. I think they have to be two named females, or there's some variations on this, but two female characters who have a conversation that is not primarily involving a male character.
Okay,
Basically,
So it's a way of showing female autonomy in the story, that they're not just fixtures of attention for the males who are driving the story.
So for example, like the Last Jedi would probably pass the Bechdel test because I'm guessing that. God, why am I Kelly Marie Tran? Why am I blanking? Rose and Ray. They don't actually have any. They have no interaction, do they?
Rose and
my
Ray?
God.
No, they don't.
Do Leia and the captain have any interactions?
Holda, yeah, they do.
About
Probably
how
talk,
the ship's
talking
going to
about
be...
Poe.
It's probably talking about Poe, though. Yeah.
I thought they might be talking about how the ship was going to crash at some point, but I don't know.
They might, yeah.
No,
Well, anyway.
they did. Well, they might have had another conversation, but they definitely say like, "Ooh, he's a wily one," or you know,
Yeah.
something.
That doesn't pass. But it's actually it's remarkably hard to have movies that do pass, which are popular big budget films, because they tend to be male character driven, and then the female.
At least that are. I was about to say like. It depends on the movie, right? Something like Bridesmaids has plenty of scenes where they're probably talking about men, but plenty of scenes where like it's just women acting like men, honestly, I guess. But like, I mean, the real women do that. So,
but you know, the purpose of it is to show that there are movies out there which do exist and pass the Bechdel test with flying colors, and not just because they're intended to do so. You know, there's a movie that I don't know why this one came to mind, probably because of the beer. Ghost World with Scarlett Johansson and I can't remember the name of the other actress, but that movie is very, very clearly passing the Bechdel test on a lot of levels, and it's very engaging and interesting because it's not about the men character for the most part. The men aren't secondary in the story, whereas these two females are the primaries instead of the usual reversal.
So it's not that the entire movie they can't ever talk about a male character.
Correct. They have to be able to have at least one conversation, genuine, real conversation, about something other than male characters.
Low bar.
It's a low bar.
It's a low bar,
It
but a lot of movies don't
fails.
pass it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the incredible part.
That's kind of the point, is that you'd think it'd be something that'd be an incredibly low bar, and yet the number of movies that don't pass it are pretty high. Because
not to give any movies any passes, but I mean, sometimes it could just be like they're talking about other characters who all happen to be men, but not in kind of the way I guess I'm thinking that the test is intended to be. It sounds like this test is intended to be like they're talking about the men, not necessarily romantically, but yeah, I don't know. Feels like there's not an ulterior motive, but there's like a you have to be talking about the other characters at some point, right?
The other characters are there for a reason.
In some ways, it could be seen as a little unfair-ish, right? Because, like, okay, what if they're talking about a male character, like, in a completely non-romantic way that just happens to be a male character? Well, yeah, you're basically saying it has to be a movie that is either, yeah, primarily female, right? Like in Bridesmaids, like to your point, like if the main character is male, almost every scene is going to revolve around that main character, that main male character. So it's going to be hard to pass a Bechdel test.
Yeah,
and that could be part of the point, right? Like there should be more movies where the main character is female, or
well, can you also utterly fail the test? Like Hunt for Red October has to utterly fail the test, right? Because there's like no female characters in it.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be an epic failure of the Bechdel test.
Or I'm thinking like with the new Matrix movie, like I mean, wasn't Trinity like the only female in the first Matrix movie?
No, there was
Trigger.
That was her name.
And Switch, depending on how you read
Switch is
the
who is Trigger? Switch was the white-haired girl, right?
Yeah, but Switch may or may not be female, how she identifies.
Oh, okay.
So it's a little
Trigger.
complicated. I may be missing. I'm
Okay.
I don't remember. So let's skip that one.
All right.
All right, but I'm sure they were talking about Neo in every scene. So.
Oh, certainly. Yep.
I mean, that's the nature of the Matrix. Was everybody was talking about Neo? So.
Was there ever a conversation that wasn't involving Neo? Like, no.
Yeah, probably not.
But not every movie is like that. Not every movie is a superhero movie, right? So the thing is, if these superhero, and Neo is effectively a superhero, these superhero movies are very, very appealing to the teenage boys in us, even though obviously it's an R-rated movie, and I watched it at 17, 18. I was 18 when it came out, so I watched it at 18. But it's still a fun movie. But these movies, they're a type of movie, and only one type of movie, that are a really, really large part of our movie-going experiences, right? Hey, we're going to sit down and have a conversation about meaningful subjects. Our podcast and our now YouTubes of a movie, they don't really make a lot of money, as our podcast will attest.
Well, so I don't even think it's superhero movies, though. Like, if you look at Die Hard, right? Like, how many scenes in Die Hard don't revolve around John McClane? How many scenes in
well, any scene? Well, yeah, okay.
I mean, any movie's gonna have a main character or a main like 2 or 3 characters, and they almost always will involve male. And you could argue that's not right, and that's a fine argument. But the point is that like movies are pretty concentrated bits of media, right? Like you have to have every scene kind of driving the plot forward in some fashion, and it's really hard to have that not address the main characters in some fashion.
I was gonna say like a movie or even in TV shows are like you're not seeing every scene of these characters. Like the scenes are there to progress character, progress plot, or something like that. You get that kind of ambient conversation. You get that more in like video games when you're like if you're sneaking around and you just like you can listen to the guards talking about random stuff, and like that's like sometimes not the best part of the game, but like you don't get that in almost any other media, right? Like a movie, a book, a comic book, anything. Like it has to be focused on this page, this panel, this line of dialogue has to have a reason to be here. A video game can just kind of toss stuff in there and be like, this was kind of fun, let's put this in here.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like a movie it shows you a particular journey like across things, and it doesn't show you anything outside of that path that it's taken. Whereas a video game, you can go wherever you want to go, like depending on how open world it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't just get that one path, you get like the whole branching, what if the player goes over there and listens to these two women at a table talking about something completely unrelated to the main hero's quest? And yeah, there's a lot of stuff there.
And to bring it back to your personal hero Keanu,
mine or Andrew's?
All of ours.
Everyone's.
But I think I brought this up before, probably not in the videos, but there's a movie he's in with Winona Ryder. They're married because of Dracula.
How many movies is he in with Winona Ryder?
It might only be those two, I think. But
it's called Wedding one.
It's Destination Wedding.
Wedding, yeah.
They're literally the only two characters with lines in the entire movie. Everyone else is entirely background characters. No one else has a spoken line or anything. It's incredible. Like, I watched the entire movie and I was like, halfway through, I'm like, they're really gonna do this. Like, no one else in this movie is going to talk besides these two. And sure enough, I think they're the only two credited in the entire movie, I think.
So that fails the Bechdel test, but that doesn't mean that's not a good movie and not inclusive.
I wasn't even going that it failed the test, but yeah.
It shows that the Bechdel test is useful for some things, but it's like it raises our awareness of this, but it doesn't help us to understand what a good movie is. But it can help us to understand when we're not perhaps being inclusive. We also have scripts that do both things.
Destination Wedding is a good movie. Just be prepared to not watch it alone with your parents-in-law when Winona and Keanu start going at it in the field. Because that's when my wife decided to go take care of the kids in the other room right when that scene was coming. I was like, I'm going to turn the volume down, one, because the kids are in the next room. And two, I'm sitting here with my parents-in-law now watching this scene. So.
I think it's pretty safe to say there's a lot of movies you shouldn't be watching with your parents-in-law. I'll throw 50 Shades of Grey up there. All right, Andrew, you go next. I can go again. Kick-Ass.
I'll just go with Deadpool back there.
Deadpool's a good one, yeah.
But see,
Trevor's gonna object. Like,
well, I'm
no,
just saying, like,
Deadpool's
those are violent movies. I actually wouldn't have a problem watching those. And my
Well,
parents
Sex and the
didn't
City
like.
It's not a well, okay.
They don't like violence, but like, it was. I don't know. Maybe that's my American Puritanism coming through or something like that.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like to each their own, right? Like, some people would have objections to the violence, some people would have objections to the sexual content, swear words. Who knows?
We have no problem with swear words.
I remember Andrew was very upset with us because we took him to see Paranormal Activity, right?
I was not upset with you guys. I was upset with the advertising for misleading me.
Yeah,
I thought we were going to go see a ghost story. I really did.
yeah, but it was demons.
And that's a difference. That's a big difference.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You were upset.
I remember.
I was upset in a low-key way. I was like, that was not okay.
You were upset in a Catholic way.
You were throwing chairs and you were swearing and like giving middle fingers to everybody.
It was like you were possessed or something. Man, we had just moved into our first house, my wife and I together, when we saw that movie, and I came home and I was like, we're turning on all the lights.
It was a pretty good scary movie. I'm going to give it credit. I mean, I did not like it for other reasons, but it was successfully scary. So good job on the movie makers for that.
And it's successfully scary, like, without any blood, without any gore, without like any like.
Atmospherically.
Yeah, like I hesitate to even say it had jump scares. I mean, like, there's stuff that made you jump, but it, it wasn't like a traditional jump scare.
I mean, I have never been like more terrified to wake up to see like my child standing next to my bed, just like staring at me and wondering how long they've been standing there staring at me.
What, that didn't happen after Dawn of the Dead, though?
You know that. So Dawn of the Dead and Paranormal Activity have made me like absolutely terrified of my kids like standing anywhere in my room when I wake up. I will like just automatically like just
double tap them in the head.
I'm assuming I'm about to die. Yeah. Like, well, it was a good run, but time's up.
It's you or me, kid. All right.
No, congratulations on your 6 years.
Yeah, I just assume I'm the goner. Like, I can't take a zombie or a demon, so whatever.
Mm.
Andrew, are you done?
No.
Oh wow.
Hmm.
I sense a coming thumbs down.
About based on past performance, past performance is no guarantee of future returns. But
Travis would be the first, after like being the last finisher for a while. He may be the first finisher here.
Maybe it's that COVID booster making me thirsty for beer. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's your superpower.
Because I don't know.
I'm almost done, and it's close.
Because I'm normally,
Can't really tell.
I know I'm right-handed, but I think I tend to drink with my left hand, and I actually swapped where my pretzels are today, because that's been the only symptom I've had from the booster. Was like, that's about as far as I can raise my arm with before it starts hurting.
Really?
Yeah, and one of my coworkers had the same thing. He was like the same thing. He was like he couldn't lift his arm above a certain height.
So it's just muscle soreness, or is it?
It's been purely muscle soreness. I never had fever and nothing else. I mean, I always wake up tired, so I don't even want to say when I woke up tired this morning that it was that.
Count yourself lucky. Like probably 10 to 12 hours after my booster, I started getting the chills, and then I slept for somewhere around like 14 to 16 hours before my wife was like, "You should probably wake up now, or else you're not gonna be able to sleep tonight." And then I did, and then I was probably fine for the rest of the day. But it was I definitely had like a fever and
I mean,
like super lethargic. It just wasn't feeling well for
I, I was
a
prepared to
while.
take off work the following day, but no, I felt fine enough. I skipped my workout because I was like, "There's no way this arm is doing any sort of exercise right now."
My suggestion for anyone getting their third Pfizer shot, at least I can't speak to any others, is do it on a Friday, and be prepared to not be very active on Saturday.
So I had J&J for my first one, and I think she put the stamp on my new one, or the sticker or whatever. I think I got Pfizer as my booster.
You can mix and match like that.
Andrew's taking notes. Like, apparently, I'm in his book now.
I'm making some notes about the beer, so I don't forget my thoughts.
We've had more pauses this episode, I feel like, than we've had in previous episodes. The days are long and the years are short.
Well, I'll say a few things about the beer, and we'll get started on some of the review work then, I guess. This beer feels very American.
Ooh.
Ooh, my name is Earl.
My name is Earl. I hear your reference. It's a Helles lager, but it is very light and simple, and the flavor is a little bit weak, and it just feels bland. Like, it's clearly a beer, but it's mostly water, right? And all beers are mostly water. But this one tastes like it's mostly water, right? And so something is missing here. It's not the alcohol, it's the flavor. It's something that is not coming through for me. Which is not to say that I dislike it, that I think it's a bad beer. Because, look, at the end of the day, Budweiser, as much as I, throw it a whole bunch of shit because it deserves it, it's still a beer. And I'll drink a Budweiser if I have to. And sometimes you have to.
Sometimes
Wait.
Sometimes
I
you
have
have
to
to
ask you, what times do you have to drink a Budweiser? Do like
Usually when I'm
break
at the
into your
baseball
house,
stadium.
hold a gun to your head, and say like, "Drink a Budweiser or die"?
you're going to terrible baseball stadiums if all you can drink is Budweiser. Although you don't have the luxury of having Natty Boh. And yes, I will call that a luxury of having Natty Boh compared to.
Well, maybe we're talking about different natties, but natty, no, I'm
Not
not.
Natty Light or whatever. No,
Yeah.
not that. National Bohemian with the guy winking. He married the Utz girl. Come on.
Okay, so I don't have that one. I don't think I've ever had that beer.
That's Maryland beer.
All right, I'll come and visit you. You'll have me a natty bow, and we'll talk it over.
That's right. It's like $1 a can. It's pretty close to that. Although, sadly enough, I don't think they sell it anymore at Camden Yards because I want to say it's Flying Dog bought all the right, did something and like kicked Natty Boh out, which was like, and like there's no SK hot dogs. I don't know.
So
It's not as good going to Camden Yards anymore.
I'll say I still have a flavor in my mouth. I finished my beer now. I still taste the beer, right? So that's something that you wouldn't have with an American rice water beer. So it's something there, but it's super light. The Helles beer is a light Helles beer. This quote, if it weren't actually low calorie, it could qualify as light otherwise, right?
It's interesting. I understand what you mean in phrasing it as a positive, but when you first said I still have a taste in my mouth, usually that's phrased as like a negative. But I understand what you mean by being a positive. I do understand what you mean by positive. It's not because it's not an aftertaste; it's just a taste.
I had a beer, right?
So, do you want to say anything, or do we want to give the grade first, or do we want to continue talking about it? I find either way.
I feel like I'm gonna cop out like you always say I do, and just be like, yeah, I mean, I'll just second a lot of what Andrew was saying. Like we were talking, and I remember we've said this about another beer or two like that. I remember the conversation more than I remember the beer.
That's not a bad thing.
Which can be good, but
It doesn't necessarily speak well for this beer.
correct,
That's for sure.
like doesn't make it stand out. It like right there's lots of ones you can just drink in the background and not be a to stand out, either to offend or be really tasty, and like this seems to be like kind of in the middle. I didn't mean to do that.
Well, since we're all kind of projecting our ultimate grading, man, I'm struggling with the words.
Be confident, Paul. Come on.
Well, I'll just go ahead and say it. Like, to me, this felt like the worst of both worlds in terms of it. It seemed like it was trying to be like a crisp and light and refreshing kind of beer that we've had numerous times in the past from this Advent calendar, but it was hard for me to finish for some reason. It felt like heavier and something with the taste and just I don't know. It wasn't an easy drink like others, and maybe that goes towards what Andrew was saying, where like there was a lingering taste, so you know you had a beer, but it was also kind of like not very flavorful. I don't know if I can go any further than that, other than to say like it didn't really qualify as a tasty beer to me. It also didn't qualify as like a nice easy drink to me, which doesn't leave a lot of room for a thumbs up.
I was gonna say for as clear and kind of bubbly as it started out as, yeah, it wasn't that clean drink that you would expect from something like that.
Yeah, I was struggling a little bit to finish it by the end, despite the enjoyable conversation, as people were saying.
All right, let's do some thumbs picks.
Should we get the formality out of the way? All right, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess no surprise.
No
None of us
surprise.
were a big fan there.
So, taking what Paul was saying about it being, the worst of both worlds, I think ultimately, yeah, I can tell I drank a beer, but it doesn't mean it was a good one. And I hate saying that because I want to like every beer I drink, and this one just left me unfulfilled.
I think I don't know what to follow that up with.
That was like I agree with everything Andrew just said because that's all I ever do.
It just didn't work. We're very, very sorry, Joseph Erl. It's nothing personal. We wish you the best, but we will be seeking another beer to fulfill our position in our next calendar.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you all enjoyed the beer better than we did. If not, then hopefully, well, regardless, hopefully you'll join us tomorrow, where we'll be talking about beer number. Is it beer number 19?
Oh, I thought it was right next to it.
It's not right next to it, because stupid Evan calendars, right? Anyway, I think it's beer number 19.
Once we're oxide.
Oh,
This was oxide.
It's all the way down here.
All right, we're entering the home stretch, and so hopefully we got some. We had a couple of at least in my mind, a couple of questionable ones. Hopefully we'll seal that with some good ones. So thanks for joining us. Can't stop the discourse.